What is going on, everybody? We're going to be comparing the top weekly payers. We have a new king of weekly pay. We have a new Roundhill king, which I did not expect. And some other changes in the last 3 weeks of weekly pay. But before we begin, let's look at the market conditions to see what the markets have been doing so you can see the comparison and why these weekly pairs have moved like they've moved. So with SPY, we hit the all-time high up there of 586.12 and have since sold off. Came down and caught support there at that green 50-period moving average. Bounced up a little bit today and then have since sold off from that point. Then we go look at the Qs, and you can see they ripped for the last couple weeks, and then they reached that double top and have since fallen off. And we shorted the market in a membership group, so we took advantage of that. But you can see the sharp sell-off, right, that we had yesterday. Now look at this with the Russell. The Russell had the sharp sell-off last week when it hit the top of its channel, and we shorted that too in the membership group. But since that point has kind of stabilized and consolidated, and you're going to see that represented in the Russell weekly pay funds. But without further ado, let's get into the comparison and talk about the number one fund. Well, we have a change. Last week it was YMAG. Now for the last 3 weeks, YMAX has now taken over as the king of weekly pay. You can see this in a chart, right? The sharp drop from yesterday and where it landed. So, and I will say, a little spoiler alert here, these are the only two positive funds for the last 3 weeks. YMAX, if you invested $10,000 in it, you'd have $10,184. If you invested $10,000 in YMAG for the last 3 weeks, you'd have $10,117 for those of you that are listening. So, quite a big difference now between the two for the last 3 weeks of weekly pay. Now, there was some talk about YMAG paying their 5-cent dividend, and that was only because there's only 7 funds, and YMAG only had I think it was MSFO to go after, and that one doesn't pay a massive dividend. So, the 5-cent dividend on YMAG was all we got paid last week. But 15 cents this week, a little bit better. It's great. I'm loving YMAG. YMAX is now the new king of weekly pay for the last 3 weeks. And again, these are the only positive funds so far for the last 3 weeks. Okay, let's start off with the NASDAQ funds, comparing QQQI and QDTE. So as we can see here in the chart, again, the sharp decline is showing that we had that big sell-off. Okay, so if you invested $10,000 in a QQQY, you'd have $9,929. Now just barely edging it out, but beating it nonetheless, is QDTE with $9,939. So it's beating it by $10, meaning QDTE, but total returns are total returns, and you can see QDTE is now beating QQQY. QQQY the last couple weeks was beating QDTE. Are we starting to see a shift now of the Roundhill NASDAQ fund beating QQQY? We'll have to wait and see, but it could be. Before I get on with the rest of the comparisons, and I got to show you this one from the Russell. My membership group has just been killing it in the trade. You can see there on October 24th, we went long on SPY, won that one. The next day, October 25th, we sold out of the long SPY trade overnight, took that profit, and then that day, October 25th, went short on the market. That short paid off, as you can see there, October 31st. We sold the SPY short for another win, 18-0 in the membership trades. Now we have 2 going on, as you can see today. We went long on SPY with SPY U and QDTE. We're using the 4 EMA strategy, and we also went short. So we have 2 longs and 1 short on SPY. But let's get back to the comparisons. Now let's look at the S&P comparisons here. Okay, and we're starting to see the gaps widen now with the Roundhill funds. And Roundhill has a new winner this week. So WDTE, if you invested, for those of you that are listening, 10,000, if you invested that October 10th, now you'd have 9,847. If you invested in XDTE instead of WDTE, you'd have 9,942. So yeah, we're starting to see some differences here. We can look at the chart here. You're starting to see some widening now between XDTE and WDTE. I forgot to tell you, the membership group is only $4 a month. Cancel anytime. I'll leave a link in the description. Now, check out this. IWMY is just getting its tail kicked. They changed strategies to try to help, try to compete with Roundhill. Speculation on my end is why I think they did it. And this strategy is not working. They are losing to Roundhill. And let's check out this comparison here. If you invested $10,000 in an IWMY, you'd have $9,734. Check out the difference between RDTE and IWMY. $9,962. We're talking a $228 difference between these two funds. IWMY, look at the separation in the chart, is not competing very well at all. Now, RDTE is now, the last 3 weeks, the leading Roundhill fund, okay? It's beating XDTE by $20. And let me show you why. Let's get back to the chart here for just a second on IWM, right? We can see it had a sharp sell-off, but as then, since consolidated, even went up a little bit, came back down, right? You can see this the last few days where where the Russell has consolidated. And that is the reason why RDTE is beating, let's say, QDTE, because you can see the sharp sell-off from the 200 or from the $500 level from the double top there on the Qs, right? So you can see by looking at the two charts why the Russell funds are doing, or at least RDTE is doing better. And what I found crazy is you would think IWMY would be the best, defiance fund, because RDTE for the last 3 weeks has been the best Roundhill fund, but it's not. It's losing to QQQY and WDTE. IWMY has now become the worst fund for weekly pay. And let me show you, it's not even close. YMAX, the top right now for the last 3 weeks of weekly pay, is paying $10,184 the last 3 weeks. Okay? IWMY was paying $9,734. That's a $450 gap the last 3 weeks. It's not even close. And IWMY continues to fail since they changed their strategy. And there you go. You change your strategy, you mess around, and you find out, my friends. And that is exactly what is happening with IWMY. So, right now, leading the pack, YMAX with $10,184. Second in weekly pay is YMAG with $10,112. And third place now for the last 3 weeks since I've done this comparison is RDTE with $9,962. But what an accomplishment for YMAX and YMAG to be the only positive funds for the last 3 weeks out of all the weekly payers. I really hope you enjoy the content. I hope you enjoy the comparisons. I enjoy doing these videos. This is Mike, the Tactical Stock Scalper, out.